Welcome to Tennis Spin, where we put our spin on your tennis. Today, well, we're going to go ask the coaches one question. What is the best forehand grip? Stay tuned. Hey guys, are you learning or are you trying to improve your tennis? Are you taking a 1 hour lesson a week or possibly 2 1-hour lessons a week? But are you playing in between? If you're like me and I tried to learn to play the drums, in a 6-month period, I played the drums 30 minutes every week, only during the lessons. So if you want to accelerate your progress in tennis, get a fast track. Because if you're not practicing in between and you don't have a game, at least you can hit 1,000 forehands and 1,000 backhands. That's what the fast track does. It gets your game going. It gets your muscles memorized. So guys, get your game on the fast track and accelerate the progress that you get from your lessons. Click on the link below and get your tennis on the fast track. All right, guys, as you guys may or may not know, I have a Western grip, sometimes an extreme Western grip. Coach Rob has a continental grip. Coach Gu has a Eastern to semi-West grip. Coach Chris has a semi-West. Jerod has semi-West. So, but what do they teach? What do they recommend? What do they deem as the best forehand grip? All right, so got Coach Gu here.
Yes.
Coach, you've told me that you use kind of a semi-West to an Eastern forehand, right?
Yeah.
Which grip do you teach your students and why?
It's a great question. I usually start off semi-Western. I think that's the easiest way to teach. And the reason why we teach semi-Western is the most approachable way of coaching it, especially just learning how to drop the racket, the swing path of the racket, and and just the feel behind it. I think a lot of people generally feel more comfortable, and the grip itself is a lot easier to teach. Eastern, like what we call the modern forehand now, it's a little more Eastern, it's a little more extreme. It could work for certain people, but it's not the most universal grip, if that makes sense, to teach, right? Because then we get to more technique stuff of like spacing and understanding like how to hit it through that way. Some people are naturally born with it, or have the natural feel behind it, so it makes it easier. But majority of the people that are starting off, like for you, like when you probably started off, it was more semi-Western or Continental, sorry. But like I would say most of my generation was semi-Western was because it was the most approachable way. It was easier to access spin more. It was easier to keep the rally going more. Right. But over time, we would start to develop the change behind it because you will start to learn how to space with the take back or create more space with your racket while you're swinging. So that's why I would start off semi-Western, and then if they start to get serious and start to develop a little more interest into tennis and more competitive tennis, then we make this slow transition to Eastern. As most of the people that I've talked to who play collegiate or almost to like amateur pro to pro level, they still use their like modern grips, which is the Eastern, but they'll switch it sometimes, once in a while, in certain moments, because you'll never know if you need extra spin here and there, right? So it varies. So it's good to have that, especially when you're competing now. It's good to have multiple feels of the semi-Western and the Eastern grip.
Got it. So to a true beginner, you go semi-West.
Semi-Western, because you're just making them understand which grip to hold. because that's the easiest way, right? You don't want to confuse them with more other grips they got to change to, and that's why I would say semi-Western is the most universal and it's the most easiest grip to remember, because semi-Western is, you know how it is. It's right there. You see it, you grab it, done deal.
That's what Fed uses, right?
Fed uses, I think, modern. He's more Eastern. He's more Eastern, I believe.
Right. He's kind of right in between.
He's in between. That's what I'm saying. He's like in that middle ground. That's what I try to mimic off of. Like his forehand, I try to mimic pretty likely. Like the grip wise, I try to mimic as much as I can.
Right.
Because it looks like it's a semi when he takes it, and then when he strikes it, it's Eastern. It looks very Eastern because it's pretty straight out.
Yeah, he can actually. The advantage of that semi-West Eastern is that you can actually decide what you want to do right up until the end, right?
It creates more flexibility. It rewards you by going earlier, if that makes sense. With semi-Western, the semi-Western one that is playing on tour is Novak. He has a pretty semi-Western. It's a little funky, and there's a reason why his forehand, it's not a weapon, but it's consistent.
Correct.
It can be very consistent, but it's not like a really big weapon that, you know, Federer or Alcaraz or Sinner has. And all those guys now are like more into the Eastern side of the family. I think if you had to take like who created the modern forehand, it's Federer.
Right.
Now, he was the blueprint of everything, and then all the younger guys that you see nowadays are mimicking that. Right. to their style of play.
Yeah. No, to me, the reason why I changed from Continental was I saw Agassi. I wanted
Agassi,
to do that.
Yeah, so. Agassi was pretty extreme, and then he was part of that. Yeah, like Agassi, I think Pete was kind of more continental, but like you could see it. He had to change it a little bit. Was it Jim Courier?
Jim Courier. Yep.
He had that too, Western, and then after the Western era, then that's when Fed entered the market.
Exactly.
And that changed the whole game.
All right. Thank you, Coach Gu.
Of course.
Where can we find you?
You can find me at AGU.tennis. I'll also be posting content there as well.
All right, so Gu is semi-west to east. All right, so I got Coach Rob here. Coach Rob, what is, in your opinion, the best grip for a forehand?
I would probably just have to go with the semi-Western.
Semi-Western?
I don't typically use a semi-Western, but that would be, what you're looking for.
Okay. Now, why do you say that?
I think with the speed of the game, the bounce of the ball, that's the grip where you can, hit through the ball, hit up on the ball, get your spin. You can take a ball that's a little higher up and handle that with that grip.
Got it. So you are a continental guy, but you're saying
I grew up with,
Okay.
And I use it continental more now, just in teaching. But
feed.
I was probably a little more Eastern, semi-Western, just a little bit back when I had to, but that was a long time ago. So now, you got to be able to volley continental, got to be able to hit your slice, got to serve continental. But for forehand, if you were just saying hit forehands from the backcourt, semi-Western.
Semi-Western. Okay, Coach Rob's semi-Western. All right, Coach Chris here. Coach Chris, what is the best forehand, okay? What is your forehand, and what forehand do you teach? The grip.
Who has the best forehand? What do you mean?
Or what is the best forehand? So the video is about what is the best forehand, like forehand grip.
So I think the best forehand grip right now is probably like semi-Western.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's probably more modern tennis. I mean, back in the day was continental. Mm-hmm. So they're hitting it like a lot of it. We're doing it as if you're doing a serve grip or a volley grip. Mm-hmm. Forehand, I think it depends on teaching it in terms of what we want to do is take a look at their age too as well, and then their willingness to, be able to switch back and forth. So I think ideally you should be able to learn all the different types of grips to play with it, given whatever situation. full Western, semi-Western, Eastern, continental, just to kind of get an overall, understanding of how to hold a tennis racket, because there's many grips involved when you're volleying to when you're hitting a forehand. So it's a lot of grip changing that comes down to it. When I teach it, I think it goes to first, looking at their age.
For beginner 10-year-old.
For beginner 10-year-old, I would probably start them off with a little bit more towards continental, and then switching it over to a little bit more of a semi-Western. But I would try to start them differentiating between continental and semi-Western, so that at the very end they can just put it together and use it whenever they can. So it's both grips, right? So I try to make sure that they are comfortable getting the ball over simply by just nudging the ball over in a continental grip, right? So they can see that it's a little bit more fun by just hitting the ball over the net. And then when they're a bit further back, then I'll switch the grip to semi-Western so that they can practice using different grips when they're closer to the net and then further away from the net.
So your grip is a semi-West?
My grip is a semi-Western.
Okay.
Psst. Hoi.
And would you say that's the best forehand grip out right now?
I would say it's probably the more universal, easier to kind of handle a lot of heavy topspin. I'd say it's definitely one of the more versatile grips out there. I mean, if you're going from a full Western, it's very hard to kind of hit it a little bit flatter. If you're in an Eastern, it's a little bit easier to hit flatter. So it's really dependent on what your game style is.
Right.
But for the modern game, when everyone's hitting it really heavy with spin, I think in between semi-Western. So it's in between in Eastern and full Western, semi-Western.
There you go. All right. Thank you, Coach Chris. Where can I find you?
You can find me at CB Chen Tennis.
And
that's
it. All right. Off to the next coach. Coach Jerod here. What, in your opinion, is the best forehand grip?
It's a good question. Probably semi-Western. I have to go with semi-Western.
Semi-Western.
Mm-hmm.
What do you use?
I also use semi-Western.
Okay. What do you teach?
I would say also semi-Western. I don't have like a favorite towards it. I just think it's like if you think about it, like if you use an extreme Western grip, like the only person I know that had that was probably Rafa, because he always had an extreme Western grip. But the problem is most people can't. They're not strong enough to hit the ball on time with that. Because usually when you're younger and using extreme Western grip, you're hitting some crazy looking forehands and catching them late and usually giving yourself arm injuries.
Right.
Eastern grip, I haven't really used it or seen it as often. The only one that I know on tour that probably uses it is like obviously Roger Federer, who has probably one of the smoothest forehands of all time. But I feel like the margin for that is very small. So you have to hit the ball almost perfect every time to get, one, a great forehand, but two, if you don't hit it correctly, then I feel like it's risky to use it because you don't have as much safety per se. Semi-Western is just in between that. So it's not too flat, and at the same time you still get spin. And I feel like it's just easier to manipulate it to where you have like a consistent forehand stroke every single time. And it's good to replicate that's the same stroke versus using an extreme Western grip or an Eastern grip.
Right.
So usually there's that. And if I teach people how to use a forehand grip, I'll just tell them to pick up the racket like you're shaking someone's hand, and then just automatically semi-Western grip too. So I feel like that's how I learned how to hit a forehand, which is probably not the best way to do it, but yeah, because you just put the grip on the ground, have them pick it up, and then that's like a natural semi-Western grip. So. Yeah.
Got it. All right. Well, thank you, Coach Jerod.
Of course.
Appreciate you. Where can we find you?
You guys can find me on Instagram at Mod Tennis and follow my joint Instagram at KJ Tennis.
All right. Guys, thank you for watching Tennis Spin, where we put our spin on your tennis.